I really appreciate you joining me today, and thank you to everybody that has sent me this story to react to as well. It's about the murder of 26-year-old Peter Cairns. This happened on the 11th of June 2021, and on Friday the 15th of July 2022, 3 teenagers have been jailed for 37 years, and all of them are 15 and 16. The 26-year-old was fatally stabbed alongside a canal by teenagers that was on their way to a prepared fight, and they was all carrying weapons. During the 9-week trial, it was heard that Peter and his friend were fixing a moped on Rough Parkway in Telford, and the 3 defendants, who can never be named for legal reasons due to their age, approached them and they got into a verbal altercation. The 3 suspects then produced weapons, and one of them was a kitchen knife, and it was used to stab Peter in the chest, and he sadly died later on. Peter's friend was also injured during the altercation, but he was able to make a full recovery, and the 3 defendants are now aged 15 and 16, so that would mean that they were 14 and 15 at the time. Peter's mother paid respects to him after his murder, and she said that he was a gentleman and he suffered from ADHD and autism. She said, "Let me tell you about my boy. He was a very inquisitive young man and he always asked a lot of questions." His mother said that he was kind, loving, and a special individual who was there for everyone. He was very opinionated, but he was also the voice of reason in the family. Initial reports said that Peter had been covered in blood and he was seen crawling for help after the murder, and some of the locals believed that the teenagers were trying to rob his bike, and that is why the altercation started. Chief Inspector Helen Kincaid said at the time that we understand that the community is very distressed and we would like to reassure the public the investigation is ongoing and it is believed to be an isolated incident. And following the sentencing today at Stafford Crown Court, Detective Inspector Lee Holhouse said Peter was a good man who'd recently lost his job. As a sign of the man that he was trying to get himself back on his feet and find more work. During the evening of his murder, he was out with a friend on a moped, and during that time they was confronted by the school children. They was all armed and on their way to a different fight, and it was during the confrontation that Peter was stabbed. Peter was an innocent man with no connections to any gang activity, and these boys had no reason to attack him. The 3 defendants will now spend the rest of their lives in prison and also on licence with restrictions that will come with this. They ultimately paid the ultimate price for their actions.
One of the defendants pleaded guilty to his murder back in February this year. Following a 9-week trial between March and May this year, 2 more were found guilty of his murder by a jury, who accepted that these defendants were part of a local postcode gang armed and out to cause violence that day.
The police go on to say that Peter's family were very supportive during the investigation and they showed dignity in the face of such awful tragedy. One of the 16-year-olds pled guilty in February 2022 to murder, and the other 2 were found guilty after a trial, and all 3 were sentenced on the 15th of July. The first defendant, aged 16, was given an 11-year sentence. The second teenager, 16, was given a 13-year sentence. And the third defendant, a 15-year-old, was jailed for 13 years. Superintendent Jamie Dunn, who headed the Telford Policing Unit, said, "I'd like to thank all the officers involved in the case for their amazing work and the help with the individuals." This story definitely shows that smaller towns like Telford have a big problem with knife crime culture and also gang violence as well. I wasn't even aware there was gangs in Telford to this degree, but it seems that they definitely have their own issues. So I'd really appreciate it if you paid your respects in the comments to Peter, and please leave a comment below about your thoughts and opinions on the story. Don't forget to follow on Scarcity Studios on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter and Facebook, and send your stories to news@scarcitystudios.com.